The night everything fell apart still blurs together in my head, but one image refuses to fade. The thin scratches along the baseboards in the hallway. Little pale lines, almost invisible unless the light hit them right. The police said they were old, but I know better. They weren't there before that night. They were the first sign I ever noticed that something had been living in the quiet parts of my home, waiting for me to stop pretending nothing was wrong. I turned off the living room lamp at 11:23 p.m. I remember the exact time because the digital clock on the thermostat blinked as it shifted into night mode. The apartment felt warm, steady, predictable. 14th floor, downtown Seattle, glass windows, coded building entry, a lobby camera that pinged my phone whenever someone wandered through. My roommate was out of town for a conference, leaving me alone for the weekend. I cherished the silence more than I should have. I'd spent the whole work week stitched into meetings and deadlines, and my brain felt sanded down. I poured myself a generous glass of wine, sank into the couch, and started a true crime podcast. I think the irony of listening to a home invasion episode while being home alone made me smirk at first. That didn't last. Outside, the rain played its soft percussion against the windows. The city lights bled across the wet glass, turning everything into smeared constellations. I drifted off somewhere between an interview and a 911 call recording, waking again around 1 a.m. to a sound that didn't match the storm. A tap. Very soft, very deliberate. A single drop hitting a hard surface. At first, I blamed the kitchen sink. I slid off the couch, rubbing my eyes as the cold hardwood floor pressed through my socks. But the faucet wasn't leaking. Everything was bone dry, the metal cold under my fingers. The bathroom? Nothing. No dripping, no pipes straining. I told myself it was the building settling. Old complexes breathe at night. They shift, groan, whisper. That's what I told myself. I went back to the couch, wrapped up in a blanket, and tried to pretend my pulse wasn't thudding loudly inside my ears. Sleep refused to come. At 2:15 a.m., the thermostat clicked again. The vents gave a faint sigh. Then something else answered it. A dull thump from the hallway closet, like a box sliding an inch or a heavy coat falling. The closet where we kept winter jackets and holiday junk. I remembered closing it hours earlier. I would have bet money on it. Still, I walked toward it, holding my phone like a pathetic flashlight. The door was shut tight. I opened it slowly. Inside, a single hanger swung like a lazy pendulum, back and forth, back and forth. I stared at it too long. My stomach tightened, and I blamed the podcast again, my mind filling blanks with the shadows. I closed the door, but this time I locked my bedroom from the inside. The lock was cheap. A stiff breeze or a pissed-off raccoon could probably break it, but I needed it. I tried scrolling through my phone so my brain had something familiar to cling to. Blue light washed across the walls, stretching shadows into odd shapes. A notification appeared. Motion detected in lobby at 12:47 a.m. Whatever. People came and went at all hours. I dismissed it. Then came a sound so soft I thought I imagined it. A light scrape, wood against something sharp, from the living room. I held my breath until my chest ached. The rain outside had stopped. The whole apartment felt wrapped in cotton, muffled, waiting. I could hear my heartbeat in my teeth. Another scrape, closer. Toward the kitchen this time, I pressed my ear to the bedroom door. Silence, that horrible, patient kind of silence that feels like someone else is holding their breath too. A cupboard downstairs creaked open, slowly, purposefully. I don't know how I knew it wasn't the building. I just did. The smart home app said all doors were locked. No alerts, nothing unusual. But my gut twisted, and I've learned to trust that feeling. I stepped out of the bedroom, moving down the stairs one cautious step at a time. The kitchen looked normal, mostly. My wine glass sat on the counter, except it wasn't half full anymore. It was empty. The bottom held a thin ring of red, as if someone had taken deliberate, unhurried sips. I felt lightheaded. I tried to convince myself I'd finished it, but the memory wouldn't come. I stared at the cupboards. One was slightly ajar, the same one I heard. On the floor near it was a single bead of water. It glistened like a little jewel, fresh. It led toward the balcony door. The balcony was locked, curtains drawn. I didn't want to look, but I forced my hand to pull the curtain aside. Outside, the dark city stretched endlessly. The narrow ledge below the railing was empty. No wet footprints, no handprints, no sign any human could have stood there, 14 stories in the air. I went back upstairs, hands shaking. My phone buzzed, a missed call from an unknown number. Then the voicemail symbol. I played it with the volume barely audible, static. Then a soft murmur underneath it, a voice that sounded like mine, strained and stretched. I see you. I dropped the phone. It clattered across the floor like it was trying to escape. Before I could think, the building app pinged again. Motion detected in Unit 1402. That was my apartment. The panic hit so suddenly, it almost felt cold. I called 911, my voice cracking as I told him someone was inside. The operator asked questions, but they smeared together in my head as I backed into the bathroom and locked myself in. I shoved a towel under the door. It felt ridiculous, but it made me feel like I had some control. Footsteps crawled up the stairs, soft, measured. Whoever it was didn't hurry. The slowness was worse than running. It felt like they already knew exactly where I was. The bedroom door rattled. Once, twice, then silence. I waited, gripping the sink so hard my knuckles ached. I counted my breaths. On the 12th breath, a whisper drifted from the vent above the mirror. Close. Too close. I've been here for weeks. I collapsed to the floor, fingers slipping on the tiles. My screams scraped my throat raw. I don't remember dropping the phone. I don't remember the door bursting open. The police found me curled in the tub, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. They didn't find anyone else. No forced entry, no footprints, no tampered locks. They searched the ducts, the crawl spaces, everything. Nothing but faint scratches inside the vent shafts. Long ones, curved, as if something dragged itself around inside them often. One officer left a note in the report that still turns my stomach when I think about it. The wine glass had been refilled, fresh pour, set neatly on the counter, for two. The last clear memory I have is the smell rising from the garage below. Wet concrete, almost metallic, drifting upward through the vents at 11:47 p.m. Then the lights flickered once, sharp as a blink. And after that, the house acted like it didn't remember I was supposed to be alone. I killed the main lights and left only the soft amber strip under the cabinets. The loft always felt too open at night. Concrete floors, echoing glass, no real corners to hide in. My girlfriend had taken the night flight to Denver, so the space belonged to me alone. I poured a short rye, set the glass on the quartz island, cracked the blinds to watch the rain smear the city lights, and tried to pretend I wasn't tired enough to imagine things. At 12:06, I heard the elevator in the hallway. One soft chime. Not the quick ding of a resident, not the clumsy slam of maintenance. Just a single controlled note. I muted the music and checked the corridor feed on my phone. Empty hallway, polished brass doors, reflecting only themselves. The storm outside probably hit the sensors. At least that's what I told myself. By 12:42, the rye was finished. What made me stop mid-step was the condensation ring. I'd left the glass in one spot. Now it sat 3 inches to the left, like the counter had tipped. I pressed my palm to the quartz. Perfectly level, cold. No reason for anything to slide. I headed upstairs to the mezzanine bedroom, open to the whole loft. Halfway up the stairs, I stopped. The rye glass below had turned, the mouth now pointed toward the hallway, perfectly aligned. I hadn't touched it. The sensors hadn't tripped. The air felt charged, like someone had just moved, but didn't want to leave heat behind. I went back down. The glass was warm. When I opened the fridge for water, I froze. The milk carton was on the middle shelf, cap twisted loose. Neither of us drank milk. The bead of white liquid on the rim trembled like someone had just set it down. At 1:19, the thermostat dropped itself to 62. No command, no notification. The vents exhaled a cold, damp breath that smelled exactly like the garage below. Wet concrete and that faint metallic bite. I opened the building's resident portal and saw a new work order created 2 minutes earlier. Unit 12B, odor investigation, sub-basement access. I hadn't submitted anything. No one had knocked. I texted the super, no read, no typing bubbles. The utility closet was the only closed space in the loft. I pressed my ear to its steel door and heard a slow, rhythmic thump behind the wall. Too steady to be pipes, too soft to be machinery. When I cut power to the closet from the app, the thump didn't stop. It pulsed with my heartbeat like it was synced to me instead of the building. Back upstairs, I dragged the office chair to block the stairs, something between a barrier and a charm against the unknown. I opened the archived feed from the island camera. At 1:11, the glass lifted, not much, a centimeter. It rotated 90 degrees and settled again, perfectly upright. No hand, no shadow, just movement without a mover. I called 911. When the operator answered, the line hissed with that same concrete smell, thick enough. I tasted copper on my tongue. The voice that finally came through didn't sound live, more like a recording sliced into a loop. Then the call cut out. At 1:37, the lights pulsed in sequence. 3 short, 1 long. Then the smoke detector. Then the oven clock. The same pattern, repeated like the building was speaking. I shut off the breakers. The loft fell into darkness, except for the distant city glow. In that sudden stillness, I heard a scrape on the concrete below, slow, deliberate. It circled the island, paused, then climbed a stair. Metal clinked under each step, as if something placed its weight with surgical precision. Halfway up, it stopped. The air thickened around me. Something warm and viscous dripped onto the mezzanine floor near my foot. It spread across the concrete in a thin, dark smear. I backed toward the window. The blinds shivered, though the air was still. In the reflection between the slats, I saw the loft behind me. The chair was exactly where I'd left it. The rye glass was now on the mezzanine railing, filled with something too dark to be whiskey. My only escape was the emergency stairwell. The handle wouldn't turn. The app said the door was open. The scrape reached the top stair. I didn't wait. I grabbed the chair and smashed the window. Wind and rain exploded inward. I climbed onto the ledge, fingers bleeding on shattered glass, and screamed for the police already wailing below. When officers entered the loft, everything inside was spotless. Blinds intact, no broken glass, no warm puddle on the floor. The rye glass sat on the island exactly where I'd set it at the start of the night, no sign of movement on any recording. They found me an hour later, soaked and shaking, repeating that the building had a heartbeat. Maintenance checked the sub-basement in the morning. They found a hatch forced open from the inside, leading to a crawl space running behind every unit. In the dirt and dust lay a sleeping bag, a milk carton, and a single rye glass, cleaned and waiting like someone planned to come back. The microwave clock blinked 3:14, frozen, counting down to nothing. I slid the deadbolt at 10:58 p.m. and the sound vanished into the emptiness of the open-plan ranch. I'd rented it for the long weekend, sight unseen, lured by promises of smart home serenity and no neighbors within a mile. Outside, the prairie wind pressed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, making the glass flex almost imperceptibly. Inside, only the hum of the induction stove and a single pendant light pooling over the island kept me company. I poured sparkling water into a heavy crystal tumbler, my one luxury in the minimalist kitchen, and set my phone to charge. A notification blinked on the oven glass. "Welcome, Lila. All systems armed." I swiped it away, laughing nervously at how silent everything felt. By 11:37, the pendant flickered once. I told myself it was the generator, off-grid solar and battery, prone to quirks. But when I opened the utility drawer for the manual, the pages were dog-eared at power anomalies, and a fresh note in the margin read, "Ignore flicker, it's normal." I didn't write that. Settling on the leather sectional, I scrolled satellite images. The house appeared as a perfect white rectangle in a brown sea of grass. No outbuildings. No road except the gravel ribbon I'd driven in on. The timestamp on one image read 14:02 while I was still at the airport. A refresh, 12:19. A tiny red dot pulsed beside the east foundation, then vanished when I zoomed. The induction stove beeped softly. 0:01, a countdown. I tapped the panel. It reset. Lights dimmed, then steadied. Glitch, I told myself. At 1:03, the tumbler had moved 4 inches left. Condensation left a perfect circle. I hadn't touched it. Concrete floor, dry, no drag marks. I opened the fridge, shelves rearranged, sparkling water now where oat milk had been. I never bought oat milk. The thermostat dropped from 71 to 68 on its own. A soft sigh came from the HVAC closet, carrying the scent of damp soil. I killed every light. Darkness pressed in. Silence, surgical. Then, tap, tap, tap above the island, measured, precise, every 12 seconds. Morse? I didn't know. The 7th cycle paused, then resumed closer to the hallway. I crept toward the bedroom wing. The air grew cooler, heavier, smelling of earth. I nudged the guest bath door. It swung inward silently, the mirror fogged with a perfect handprint, fingers splayed, thumb angled wrong, as if pressed from inside the glass. Thermostat read 61. Tapping stopped. A wet drag began overhead, following me step by step. At 2:11, the rental app pinged, enjoying the quiet, sent 210. I hadn't given the host my number. I typed, "Who is this?" Delivered, undelivered, vanished. Chat history blank. I noticed the attic access in the hallway ceiling. Stool beneath it, I climbed, pushed the panel. Warm, humid air rolled out, smelling of turned earth. One boot print in the insulation, my size, still wet. My breath caught. I dropped the panel. The stool toppled with a hollow clatter. Silence. Then slow, deliberate breathing, not mine, coming from the HVAC return at floor level. The microwave, 3:14, frozen. I tried the front door. Deadbolt turned. Door wouldn't budge. App showed unlocked. Attic panel creaked. Ladder unfolded rung by rung. I grabbed the heaviest knife, backed against the fridge. Drag resumed above the island. A viscous drop hit the countertop, spreading dark and iron-scented. Pendant blinked. 3:14. Then died. Something landed soundlessly on the island. The tumbler toppled, shattering. Police found me at dawn, palms on the quartz, staring at 3:14. Knife rinsed in the sink, attic ladder folded, panel taped, boot print dried to a fossil, rental listing removed by noon. Host account gone. Only anomaly. A faint condensation ring on the island, 4 inches left of center, shaped like a tumbler that was never there. The last clear sensation was the subtle pulse of the floor beneath my bare feet, a rhythm that didn't belong to me. I locked the door, turned the key, and let silence settle. The apartment still smelled of fresh paint and the ozone from the smart blinds. I left the kitchen strip light on, a thin ribbon of white across the marble island, and poured water into a steel bottle. The cap clicked shut louder than expected. I set it precisely on the coaster, the way I always did. After a while, the strip light dimmed, not off, just lower, as if the apartment had decided I needed less. I waved at it, nothing. The light stayed patient. Opening the fridge for no reason, I noticed the shelves rearranged. The oat milk had shifted, label facing inward. I never turn labels inward. The cold air carried a faint trace of wet plaster, the kind that hadn't fully dried behind drywall. I closed the door. The seal popped softly and the strip light brightened again, almost apologetic. I sank into the sectional, pulling the cashmere throw over my knees. Warmth radiated from the heater, but it felt borrowed, like someone had just stood up. On my phone, the hallway camera feed lagged slightly behind real time. I refreshed. The delay grew. One frame froze, my door, the peephole lens glinting as if something had leaned in. I stood. The throw slipped silently. The steel bottle had moved to the edge of the island, cap loosened, a single bead of water trembling on the rim. I hadn't heard it shift. The marble was otherwise dry. Minutes passed. The building keycard had vanished from the utility drawer where I had left it. The drawer smelled faintly of the same wet plaster. The strip light pulsed once, deliberate, then held steady. From the ceiling came a soft scrape, not above, but within the blind's recessed track. The slats shifted a millimeter, then another, a thin shadow pooling on the floor like a finger testing the air. I backed toward the bedroom corridor. The air was cooler, heavy with the scent of uncured concrete. The thermostat read the same as the kitchen, yet my skin prickled. Halfway down, the smoke detector clicked, a tiny mechanical tongue tasting the air. Its LED blinked green, then amber, then green again, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. In my bedroom, the door turned smoothly but refused to latch. I pressed my shoulder against it. Through the gap, the hallway light dimmed in waves as if the apartment were inhaling. Time blurred. On the 7th exhale, the window blind began to rise on its own, motor whining faintly. Moonlight spilled across the bed. The blind stopped halfway. In the glass, my reflection tilted fractionally after mine, testing the delay. I slid to the floor, back against the door. The pulse underfoot grew stronger, traveling through the frame into my spine. It wasn't the radiator. It paused, then resumed. A sequence of 3 short, 1 long, like a code against bone. I locked the bathroom door. The mirror was already fogged in a perfect oval, the size of a face pressed close. The fog cleared from the center outward. My eyes stared back, pupils blacker than mine. I blinked. The reflection blinked a beat later. Water dripped in the shower, though I hadn't turned it on. Drops hit the porcelain like a metronome, pooling into a handprint. Fingers splayed toward the drain. The dripping stopped. The handprint remained. I don't know how long I stayed there. The vibration became a low hum, then a pressure behind my eyes. When I finally opened the bathroom door, the bedroom was dark, the blind fully open. Moonlight painted the bed silver. The duvet was turned down on one side, the pillow indented as if someone had just risen. In the corridor, lights were off, but the kitchen strip glowed again, surgical. The steel bottle sat centered on the island, cap tight. Beside it lay the key card, Magnetic strips scratched in tiny, deliberate grooves. The front door was ajar. No wind, no sound. Just a gap-breathing hallway air into the room. The vibration followed my steps until I reached the threshold. The peephole lens glinted from the inside, reflecting my eye pressed close. I touched the handle. Warm metal, slick with condensation. The door eased shut on its own. The deadbolt slid home with a soft, satisfied click. The strip light dimmed to a whisper. The vibration settled into the floorboards like a promise kept. The police found the apartment sealed from the inside. Every blind closed, every surface wiped clean. The steel bottle stood centered, empty, cap etched with a single bead of water that refused to evaporate. The key card was gone. The only anomaly, a faint handprint on the bathroom mirror, edges crisp, as if breathed on from the wrong side. The last thing I felt was the wall breathing behind my shoulder, slow and even, as if the plaster had learned my rhythm. I twisted the deadbolt. The click vanished into the empty loft. The apartment was glass and poured concrete, still smelling of fresh sealant. I left the recessed fixture above the cooktop on its lowest setting, a coin of light on black steel. Shoes off at the mat, the concrete drank the warmth from my feet. My phone lay face down on the island, screen dark, and I listened to the building settle around me. The light dimmed on its own, not off, just less, like a pupil narrowing. I lifted my hand, nothing. A faint mineral scent drifted through the air, damp and cold, like water moving through stone. The pantry door caught my attention, shelves rearranged, olive oil where salt had been, cap loosened a turn. The salt jar was gone. I never use it. The magnetic latch sighed shut. The cooktop light brightened again, almost courteous. I sank into the low sling chair in the sitting area, wool throw across my lap. The fabric retained a faint heat, as if someone had just stood. I checked the building's resident portal. The hallway feed showed empty corridors, but the timestamp lagged behind reality. I refreshed. The frame froze on my door. The matte black handle gleamed with a fresh fingerprint, thumb angled inward. I rose. The throw slid to the floor silently. In the kitchen, my phone had moved to the counter's far corner, screen awake, displaying the floor plan. The attic access, never noticed before, glowed amber. I hadn't opened the app. Minutes passed. I opened the utility closet. For the breaker key, the hook was bare. The key had been there earlier. Floor shelf behind the water heater, nothing. The closet smelled of damp stone, stronger now, as if the foundation exhaled. The cooktop light pulsed once, deliberate. A soft abrasion came from the ceiling track where the fixtures lived. Metal whispered against metal. Something thin threading the rail, a shadow pooled on the concrete, long and jointed, tasting the air. I backed toward the bedroom corridor. The air grew colder, thick with uncured concrete. The motion sensor clicked, LED cycling in a pulse matching my own. The bedroom door refused to latch. The strike plate had shifted just enough. I leaned my weight. It held. Through the gap, the passage light dimmed in waves as if the loft inhaled. Time stretched. On the 9th heartbeat, the blind began to rise, motor straining though I never touched it. Moonlight slid across the bed in a widening blade. In the pain, my reflection's shoulders moved after mine, testing the delay. I slid to the floor, spine against the door, and felt the vibration again, stronger, traveling through the frame, not settling, something learning my weight. The vibration paused, then tapped a code. 2 short, 1 long, like bone against bone. I crawled to the ensuite, locked the door. The click echoed. The mirror was clouded in a perfect circle, the size of a mouth pressed close. Fog cleared from the center. revealing my eyes, but the irises had thin amber rings. I blinked. The reflection blinked a beat later. Water dripped in the sink, tap off, one drop, then another, each striking porcelain with metronomic precision. A partial footprint formed, heel only, toes absent, as if whatever stepped there didn't need the front of a foot. The dripping stopped. The print remained, edges sharp as water soaked in. I don't know how long I stayed crouched. The vibration became a hum, then a pressure behind my eyes. When I finally opened the ensuite door, the bedroom was dark, blind, fully raised. Moonlight painted the bed in silver. Duvet folded back on the right side only, pillow bearing a shallow depression that slowly filled, memory foam releasing a shape. I stepped into the passage, lights off. Cooktop glowed brighter now, surgical. The phone sat centered on the island, screen dark. The building key lay beside it, magnetic strip etched with microscopic grooves in a perfect spiral. I walked to the front door, legs feeling borrowed. The vibration matched my cadence until I reached the threshold, handle warm, slick with condensation. The door eased open 3 inches on its own, exhaling hallway air smelling of stone and copper. I touched the gap. Resistance, not the door, but a dense, elastic membrane of air. The door shut with a soft click. The deadbolt slid home, though I hadn't turned it. Behind me, the cooktop light dimmed to a filament. The vibration settled into the concrete like a promise kept. The loft was found sealed from within, every surface immaculate. Phone displayed the floor plan, attic access amber. The key's spiral grooves vanished, leaving only a faint ring of condensation on the island, shaped like the base of a steel bottle that never was. The only anomaly, a partial footprint in the ensuite sink, heel only, edges crisp, as if pressed from the wrong side.